It's my pleasure to introduce Chrissa Ledbetter. Chrissa is a student volunteer at the National Weather Service office in Louisville and also attends the University of Louisville. She'll be talking about Damage Survey Field Guide. But first, let me introduce John Gordon, who will say a few words ahead of the talk. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Welcome, everybody. So Chrissa volunteered for us for a while. She started working on an insurance project, okay? Why some insurance companies are not paying claims because if we don't classify it as a tornado or a straight line winds, which is another thing that we're trying to get involved with. So we realized when we're doing this that the damage indicator kit that Marshall put together in 04 and then again in 06 has not been updated in a long time. There's people on this call who were not even born. So Chrissa has worked her tail off. Strap in, get ready to learn, and this is a best practice everyone should be using for all our storm surveys. Here you go, Chrissa, bring it on. And by the way, we all need to hire her when she graduates. Make sure you hire her.
Thanks, John. All right, so like I said, my name is Chrissa Ledbetter. I've been volunteering here at the NWS Louisville office since January, and I am a second-year graduate student at the University of Louisville. Today I'll be talking about the storm survey damage field guide that we use here at the LMK office and the updates that I've done. There we go. So what is it? So I'm sure many of you know, but this document is designed to give a comprehensive guide when assessing storm damage in the field. It gives plenty of information to be able to facilitate assessment to make sure that damage is being assessed correctly. For the LMK office, this document is in the form of a binder, and I do have it here. Some of you can see we have it in a form of a binder, and then you can open, and each are in just these like little casings so that you can take it out in the field and it is protected. So it's ready to grab and go for damaged surveys. And then, like John was saying, Texas Tech and Tim Marshall updated this guide in 2006. For LMK, we did update in 2012 after the Henryville tornado. So ours is a little bit more updated, but still needs a lot of work. So just like a little overview of kind of what the beginning of this document looks like. First is a table of contents that has all 28 DIs in it, damage indicators, and easy page access so you can flip right to in the field and know exactly where you need to go. Each DI also has a front page that has a picture and then a little description on what this DI should be. So in this case, there is small barns or farm outbuildings, and then talk about less than 2,500 square feet, wood or metal roof, something. So each one has a description to kind of make sure that we're using the right DIs when necessary. And then each of them also have all the degree of damage or the DODs listed along with the lower bound, median, and upper bound wind speeds for that damage. So what I did for the field guide, like I said, the LMK office did an update in May of 2012, but there were still many DIs that did not have complete examples for each DOD. My goal was to update and complete all of the DIs to the best of my abilities, because there's still some out there that don't get used that often. And for this, I strictly use the Damage Assessment Toolkit so that I can look over the whole CONUS and not just LMK's warning area. So I'll kind of walk through now how I use the Damage Assessment Toolkit. So each time I open, I try to keep these images for the last 4 years to get as most recent as possible. And then from there, I can lower, if I have plenty of things to look through, I can kind of lower down that time frame. So I set that each time I go in, and that is up here in the corner. You can set that and just submit to get every point for that time frame. And then to help kind of declutter, there is a layer button on the top ribbon, and you can deselect any layers that you don't need. So for me, the only thing I really needed was damage points. That's where all my information I needed in my images would be at. So I can deselect the flood data test, the damage lines, and the polygons. I did keep CWA on there just to kind of help me track where I'm at and just make sure that I can kind of keep track of what I've seen and what I haven't. So that was just kind of a personal choice. And then the DAT also has a good and helpful feature called it's a filter button. So big shout out to Jim Ledoux for teaching me this and making sure that I knew about this, because beforehand I did not, and it was a very slow process of click and go. So this is a very helpful feature. So you can filter by layer. So like I said, in my case, the damage points is what I needed. So I'm going to filter by that layer because that's where my images are going to be stored, is in those points. So each damage point has a information window that comes up with it. So this is just an example of a point that I grabbed. So you have all kinds of things, and there's more to this. This is just kind of a screenshot of what I would need. So the first thing is the damage text. So this shows the DI for each point. And then the second thing that I need is the DOD text, and that is showing the degree of damage description. I will note that one thing, so right above that DOD text is just a DOD, which is showing the number. I would have used that, but for some, it did not pop up. Like I was seeing in some that the DOD was just blank. So I went ahead and used that DOD text just to make sure that I was getting every point possible. So from there, back to our filter window, we can add expression. You can add as many expressions as you would like. So for me, I added 2 expressions. First one being for the DI, or the damage text. So I would filter for that specific point in the data. And then I'm going to use the contains in this. So it had options of is not, exact, things like that. So I use contain so that I could just pop in the abbreviation for the DI. And then my second one, I'm going to use the DOD text to filter in exactly what DOD I wanted to see. So I, again, use that contains word to help there, so I didn't have to type out the whole DOD or anything like that. I just picked out, for this case, the greater than 20, because it's the only DOD that had the greater for 20 for this specific DOD set. So after we kind of push that through, then this is the example of this specific one. So this is still all of the points that were for the 1 to 2 family residents, and there's still a lot of points here. So me personally, as I would go through, I would shorten this time and I would start out at just January 1 of 2024 and kind of go to a shorter time period so I can get the most recent, because this is still a lot of points to go through. And then I wanted to point out, this is where the images are. So we just scroll down in that damage point window, and then it has the pictures attached. And from here, it is just a click and go. So I would click in each image, review it, see if it's showing exactly what I need it to show, making sure that the DOD is being represented in the picture. So that's an overview of how I use the DAT. And I do have a walkthrough in the format of a document that will be available for anybody who is interested. Okay, so I'm going to go through some examples of some improvements, and these are going to be some pictures that are from the 2006 document, and there's just been a lot of events since then. I mean, they didn't have as much as we do now, so these improvements are just come with time. So this is what they had best at the time. So 1 to 2 family residents, DOD of 6, large sections of roof structure removed, most walls remain standing. This is the 2006 image. And this is the current image that I updated to. And for this, this was in June 25-26 in 2023 in Cecilia, Kentucky, with EF2 damage. And then we've got apartments, condos, and townhouses. So this picture is, you can kind of see the top floors, but like I said, it's what they had. So this is DOD 5 with most top story walls collapsed. And this is what we now have. This is from March 31st, 2023 in Little Rock. And this was EF3 damage. Next, we have large isolated retail building. DOD of 6, inward or outward collapse of exterior wall. So it's a little hard to see. And then this is updated. This is actually a good example I wanted to put in because large isolated retail building is not often used and the pictures aren't very good because it is such a big building that you have to capture in one picture, and that's hard. So this is a good example of, this is the best kind of that we had. You can still see the inward and outward collapse through the glass and like the framing. But I just wanted to point that out as well, that still to this day, things are hard to capture in a picture. But this is from March 28th of 2020 in Jonesboro with EF2 damage. Next, we have elementary school, DOD of 8, collapse of non-bearing walls. That was 2006. This is current. So this is from July 29th, 2024 in Perkinsville, Indiana with EF2 damage. Institutional building, this is DOD 5, uplift of lightweight roof deck and insulation, significant loss of roof material greater than 20%. So I can see this picture is really hard to see what exactly has been lost in the roof. Here we get a more clear image from March 14th, 2024 in Winchester, Indiana with EF2 damage. Here we have metal building systems, DOD of 7, progressive collapse of rigid frames. And that was 2006. This is current, December 11th, 2021 in Bowling Green, EF3 damage. Next, we have warehouse building, DOD of 7, total destruction of a large section of building or entire building. And then this was 2006. This is current, again from December 11th, 2021, Bowling Green, Kentucky with EF3 damage. We've got trees, specifically hardwood, DOD of 5, trees debarked with only stubs of larger branches remaining. And this is what we have now, just more close up to see the actual debarking. And this was from May 6, 2024, Osage County, Oklahoma, in EF3 damage. So while completing the update of this document, there are still some DIs that are not complete just due to lack of use. So for example, service station canopy, I specifically don't have anything for DOD 2 and DOD 5. And then high-rise building, I'm missing anything DOD 5 through 8, so that high-end wind speeds. And there are also some DIs that are not being used correctly, and this is purely just, common that it can be misused. For example, the small retail building and small professional buildings are being used interchangeably. So for small retail buildings, this is more talking about the fast food restaurants, and then a small professional building is more talking about banks, small doctor's offices, things like that. And that's why these small descriptions with each DI is very important to kind of look through in the field to make sure that we have the right DI in mind. Thank you for your all's time. Like we said, my name is Chrissa. I have my email here. If you'll have any idea of some pictures that would be good to additions, please send me an email. I would love to get some more in there. And then I also have links for this document, the the EF field guide, sorry, and the DAT walkthrough that can be accessible to anybody. And then with Ryan and John, they can help me get that out to anybody in the field. And then I can take any questions.
Great job, Chrissa. If anyone has any questions, please leave them in the chat or raise your hand. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here at SLS in front of a bunch of posters, but yeah, I think that was really good. It's nice to see you collect a lot of that evidence and build up some guidance and so forth. I was doing this, not this kind of project, but I was trying to search for all houses that had, enough pictures to do another project with in the past, and it was challenging because often there weren't enough pictures, or maybe there was a picture of a tree instead of a house, but in the house DI, and it's namely because I think they were trying to come up with the surroundings and see what it is, but we can definitely do that, but still have the house in the field of view. So I don't know. Did you run into any other like things that you wish you had that you didn't get in there that might help out in the future?
Yeah, so I definitely understand where you're coming from. So that happened many times where I would click on a point and have so many images and then only one being the actual DI. And that's kind of what I figured too, trying to get the surroundings, make sure we know exactly what's going on in the field. But truly a lot of it is just use of area and kind of when these DIs are being used. Like I said, high-rise buildings are not being used as often, which are, you're only going to get that in certain areas. And then service station canopy isn't getting used as much. I don't feel as if an institutional building isn't getting used as much either. But it's just going to be a long time just kind of looking through events and making sure that I have anything that I need. But yeah, so there's just a few DIs out there that are kind of lacking.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Once again, oh, there you go. There's a question in the chat from Jacob. Hey, Chrissa, somewhat related question. Based on the pictures that you looked at, and if you can only choose one location, would you, Chrissa, rather seek shelter in a vehicle or in a mobile home? Thanks.
Oh, goodness. That's hard because there's a lot of pictures out there that are really bad for both.
I don't think there are any vehicle DIs.
There's not a vehicle DI, but there are several vehicles that have been in home pictures that are just devastated. That's really hard because there are some mobile homes that are attached pretty well. So on this one, I might go mobile home just from what I've seen in these pictures. Now, if we get high end, I mean, neither. But yeah, so there's definitely both pictures that are very devastating. But I have seen if there's a car in a picture, it's overturned, it's smashed into, there's impalements. So, and I've seen mobile homes that are just kind of slid off too. I've seen overturned ones too. So I'll probably have to go mobile home on this one, but that's definitely a tough one.
And this is John. So Jim, can you come back on, Mr. Ledoux? And what's going on with all the new DIs coming, like the vehicle one for everyone that's on this call? You know more than anyone.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, there is a vehicle DI. It's a good one to limit or rule out certain wind speeds, but it's going to have pretty wide error bars come in because it's just. And by the way, these were performed using wind tunnel testing, so forth. So there's some numbers with it. It's led by Fred Hahn out in Calvin College. So yeah, we'll get that. Grain elevators and grain bins is another one that's going to be pretty big. For those folks that had Hurricane Milton, we're separating a house into two categories. One is the standard wood frame house, and then we'll have the concrete masonry unit house, which has substantially higher threshold wind speeds for, especially if you consider the new code versions with reinforcement. By the way, when you talk about the small professional building and the retail building, we're going to merge those. So it's kind of funny that you found that they were interchangeably, and we noticed that, and actually in many cases the construction is similar. So that we'll do that, and we're actually merging the manufactured housing into just one standard DI. So schools is another one. We're going to change that from elementary versus middle or high school to 1- and 2-story schools because really the construction is similar. It's just that you have multiple stories or not. And yeah. The interesting thing, Tim Marshall here gave a talk yesterday looking at a school in Decatur, Texas that was hit. And he actually used the metal building system for the gymnasium. because it was kind of attached but really separate from the rest of the school, and that's literally how it was constructed. Same thing with Dollar General and Dollar Tree stores. We've been Tim has been using metal building system as opposed to retail store, large or small, just because that was what they were. They were metal building systems, including some churches. So, but we're still going to have metal building systems, and we're still going to have retail stores, large retail stores, et cetera, in the revised version. So there are other changes, trees especially, that's going to be big. When you're looking at the stub trees, we're going to, instead of having hardwood and softwood, we will have a single tree DI and then a multiple tree DI. And with the single tree DI, we have a new upper bound degree of damage, and that's trees bodily removed from the substrate and traveling some distance. So that happened in Greenfield, Iowa, for example, last May. So I think those are the major ones right now. One more, wind turbines. One that we don't have though, solar farms. Yeah, those are going to be all over the place pretty soon. So, but unfortunately, that might have to wait until the next version. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Oh no,
Yeah,
somebody
Phil
asked
has a
when.
question.
Always
When can we
when.
expect to see these DI changes and additions? I assume that's for you, Jim.
I know sorry there. I know people are starting to burn down bridges, and it's like, when is that coming? It's like I can't say. All I can say is we are up to 500 pages with the revised version of the EF scale, and pretty soon that whole chapter is going to be, within a couple months, the whole chapter will be balloted internally. So that's a big lift. It's going to be 1 to 2 years. Before it comes out. It's just a lot of work by people that are doing it outside of their normal work hours, volunteer effort, and so things move painfully slowly. I can tell you that because my hair used to be blonde when we started this, and now I don't have any hair.
Okay, I saw the question about the overhead utility lines. There is a couple DIs in here already. So there's electrical transmission lines, DID 24, and then we also have freestanding towers and freestanding light poles. But I'm assuming you're talking about the electrical transmission lines. And that one actually there is pretty complete. There is quite a few examples out there and pretty good ones. If that's what you're referring to. If there's any more to that question that I didn't hit, just let me know. Kevin.
Yeah, Chris, this is more for Jim, but do you know why we're reading through the Tornado Act that's likely to get passed here in this lame duck session, and they included the language that the EF scale be updated within 1 year time frame. Do you know why that got included in that language? It sort of seemed to be out of place, and it kind of, I think it was going to get left in the actual congressional bill. Do you have any insight on that?
I could make a couple comments there, unless Chrissa, you have any. Yeah, so I saw that bill too, and but I didn't know they would have any decent chance of passing. The reason that doesn't seem realistic, unless they're going to accompany it with funding, is that we're just we are not being funded to actually do this by any sustained measure. So there's no real time. It's done basically on if you think about it, service time towards ASCE activities or AMS activities, for example. So if they have funding and if they want to put that on everybody's performance plans, yeah, we'll be easily done inside of a year. We'll have something, and in fact, we'll have several other methods available as well. So that's hopefully they do. I don't know if that's going to happen though. But yeah, to answer, there's no other separate method, or let's say effort, besides what we're doing, because we wouldn't know anybody else that would be doing it. I mean, it's a small community.
Well, you make a good point, but it looked like it was sort of wedged in the bill, right? It was out of place a little bit, and I thought, well, somebody had to have said that to.
Yeah, I don't know the backstory
Congress.
behind that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I should say this, however, I was acting NWERP director for a couple of years, and in there, in the past 2 congressional reports that NWERP, that's National Windstorm Impact Reduction Program, by the way, we put in the report, the activities of the Standards Committee, but we also put in activities for lots of other things that FEMA, NOAA, NSF, and NIST are doing. So it's just one more. But so they might have been using that content as well as just hearing about all the issues surrounding the post-storm assessment process and so forth. So just conjecture, at least at this time.
All right. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, in the chat, there's just clarification, also talking about distribution lines in there as well. for
Okay.
you, Chrissa.
Excellent presentation, Chrissa. I did have a follow-up question about the field guide. So my understanding from the presentation was these photos are primarily highlighting the expected bound of damage for the DIs and DODs. Is there any consideration for including examples of lower and upper bounds? Because that's one of the, I feel pretty comfortable going out in the field and assessing expected bounds, but for DIs that I don't encounter as frequently, knowing whether to go lower or higher is always a challenge, and I think that would be a useful resource. So has there been any consideration to doing that?
Yeah, so I do have a few in there that do have kind of an upper or lower bound, but that is the next phase of the project that is planned to do, because that is a very good point of, okay, is this actually lower? Is it just dependent on the construction? So yes, this is, hopefully that will be the next step in updating and having those lower and upper bounds.
Yeah, that's the next phase of the project. And so you guys see the links on the right side of her screen there, the EF guide and the DAT walkthrough. It's been my experience in Kentucky that our internet stinks. So if you think to yourself, I'll just put this on my phone, I don't need this stinking binder, you might want to bring a binder with you and print one out, because the internet services across much of your area is not good.
And Chrissa, just to wrap that up, are there any DIs for distribution lines? As noted in the chat.
Yeah, so there is a DI for the freestanding towers, but that's more, so that's cell phone towers. And then, but other than that, that is the only like utility line with DIs, those two.